Hello and welcome back to the Bears and Lions podcast. I'm Kyle Vaught. Today is week 2. We start week 2 of our 4-week series called The Battles We Face. And I believe, and I think we can all agree, that life is a battle. There's just a lot of battles that we face throughout the day or throughout our week or throughout our lives. And everything has some nuance of a battle, whether it's something as small as I don't want to hit the snooze button. I want to wake up. I want to go work out. I want to do X, Y, or Z, right? All of those things are little battles. And so we face those battles. Maybe you're in school and you're like, I just don't want to show up to class. That's a battle you face. But what you don't realize is that all of these battles kind of compound into the future that we're building. And how we go to battle today will impact the future that we are building for ourselves, but it'll also impact the people around us. And so that's why I think it's important to kind of break down the battles we face, break down how we're addressing them, break down, are we even aware of them? And how can we be more aware of them so that we know how to utilize our skills better in going to battle? And then how do we utilize the learning and the wisdom of learning from those battles? Maybe it doesn't go well all the time, but we can learn from them if we are aware of them. So the first week we talked about how do we prepare for battle. And I kind of went through the process of recognizing the terrain. What level are you fighting on? Maybe it's a battle that you're just not positioned to win and you need to take a step back because you're in a position where you're just walking into a losing battle. And especially if it's something that you're truly desiring or you want to go after and you don't want to miss that opportunity, sometimes it's best to take a step back and make a plan and understand that I need to be in a different position to go to battle. Or maybe you're in the best position possible and you need to be able to recognize that. So you put all of your eggs there and you say, you know what, I'm going head in, all in. We're doing this. We're going to go claim the victory because I know I'm in the best position for this. And I know that I can do this. And I know it's beneficial for everybody. So I'm going to go win this. So preparing for battle, I also talked about selecting your weapon and how to choose your weapon going into battle, which is very important. Go back and listen to that podcast if you haven't yet. This week, we're going to talk about how to fight with integrity. And I think it's important to fight with integrity, but you may say, why? Nobody else is. Nobody else is fighting fair. Why should I fight fair? What does it matter? So we're going to kind of break down some things about the integrity in the fight and the why of what we're actually doing and what we're fighting for. And I think that will help us understand a little bit better that integrity and how we fight impacts the people around us and it impacts the aftermath as well. So being able to fight well is just as important as choosing the fight that you're fighting. Next week, we're going to talk about wins and losses. How do we win? How do we lose? How do we focus and how do we learn from them? How do we respond to wins and losses? If you're like me, you go through some losses every single day, every single week, every single month. There's always something where it's like, I feel like I lost there. Maybe it is something where I hit snooze too many times and I didn't go work out. Maybe it is something else where you don't get the date, you don't get the promotion, you don't get the sale, whatever you might be in. Maybe you don't get the extra credit in class. All of those are little losses. But the other side of it is I think we go through a lot of wins. And sometimes one loss can kind of weigh a lot and we don't always weigh it correctly versus the wins. And I think we go through a lot of little wins throughout the day. And we need to be able to recognize those little wins because if it's just a numbers game and you recognize, a lot of times we'll walk around acting like we're losers. But in reality, we've had so many wins throughout the day that if you were just looking at a numbers game, we should be considering ourselves winners. So being able to recognize that is important, and I can't wait to talk about that next week. And then we're going to wrap this up with the aftermath and how do we respond to the aftermath of battle? Because whether you are going through something super small or going through something super big, like a divorce or a breakup or a job loss or a job change or a loss of a loved one, those are all really difficult battles. But regardless of the size, there's an aftermath to it. If you went to a battle in the olden days, chances are you're going to come out with some cuts and bruises and things that need to be healed, maybe some broken bones as well. And that takes time to heal. And what I've found is some people find their comfort zone in the grind mode and in that mentality of, I just need to be in battle because that's the only place I feel worthwhile. That's the only place I feel like I can do anything. So I need to always be battling. But what they don't realize is they just burn themselves out and they battle themselves to oblivion. And a lot of people are impacted along the way because they lose you. They lose the opportunity to be in relationship and friendship and joy and community with you because you're so focused on the battle. So being able to respond to the aftermath and then heal is an important thing. And I can't wait to talk about that. But for this week, how do we go to battle with integrity? Why is that important? And just right off the top of your head, if I tell you, what's a battle that you're facing right now that you could take a shortcut in? And I can guarantee there's probably battles all around you that you can take a shortcut in. Chances are, like nowadays, we live in an era where you can type into AI almost anything you need, and it'll spit it back out to you ready to go. So maybe you don't want to write that letter. Maybe you don't want to have that phone call. Maybe you don't want to have that conversation. Maybe you don't want to have to do a project, or maybe you don't want to have to do something. And so you just lean on other people or other things and shortcuts. And that's the way we do things, right? Like that's how it is throughout life, is we're always looking for a better way. And I am all for a better way, but I'm all for building the skills that it takes to be able to handle it. Because if you're handed something, and just as an example, I love working out, I love the gym. The example is if I hand you a 45-pound weight and I say, this represents your dream. Are you strong enough to hold on to it? Probably for a little bit. But if you haven't built up the muscle and built up the abilities and the skills that it takes to prolong and hold that for a long period of time, chances are eventually the weight of that dream job is going to be so heavy that it's going to start to fall and your arms are going to get weak and you're going to feel it. And eventually you're going to lose it and it's going to fall out of your hands. And I've experienced this. The weight of the job that I thought I wanted, the job that I thought I really loved, sports broadcasting. Absolutely loved it, but it was a lot of work. It was a lot different than what I expected it to be. Some areas, it was exactly what I expected it to be. It was the most fun to be on the radio. It was the most fun to be on TV and to do play-by-play and to learn all these sports and to learn all these athletes' names and how the games were played and what the, different records and things like that. It was just so much fun. But there was an aspect of it where you had like a behind-the-scenes part where you had to be able to network at a certain level at all times. I mean, you never had off days. It was networking or nothing. And there was a weight that was carried to it. And I didn't stay in that job very long. I think I could have if I had made some other decisions, but I didn't. And now I'm in the best job ever, and I'm the happiest I've ever been. So it all worked out. But my point being is I've experienced that where you're in a job you really enjoy, but I was not prepared enough for it to be able to handle it long term. It was just for a season. I think it's interesting because the battles that we face, we kind of talked about it last week, that it kind of depends on the terrain that we're facing and what we're doing. That's how we prepare for it. It's the same thing in the military, the armed forces. There's actually different branches of military that handle different terrains and different aspects and different skill sets. So like you have the Air Force, which is, air, planes, things like that, where they handle air assaults. So maybe they have to drop bombs or they have to go through and drop paratroopers, right? So they fly over. The Navy, they have boats and submarines and things like that, and they're in charge of the waters and keeping the waters, the U.S. borders safe through the waters. Then you've got the armed forces of the Army, right, where it's just an all-out assault attack. They are the grunts in a way where they're the troops that stack up and they're ready to go to battle and protect us. And then you've got the Marines, who are like the elite army sometimes, or like the next level, where that's, we get people who are snipers or specialized special ops out of the Marines. Same thing with Navy SEALs, right? You have like Navy SEALs who, like Chris Kyle was the American sniper, and you have marksmen, in all of those. And then you have the Coast Guard, and you even have Space Force. So space, if anything comes from space, that's what they're here to protect us for. And I don't know how they're going to do that. But the military has multiple methods of attack and defense on different terrains. And it's the same thing when we are fighting with integrity and recognizing that not everything is the same way. Like if you were going to battle and you wanted a tactical assault, you're not going to be like, okay, so we're just going to drop a bomb on them and that's going to be the end of it. And that's not always the case. So a lot of times they'll send in the special ops is what it's called, because you need a level of finesse and you need a level of tactical advantage and understanding to minimize the casualties, to focus on one target and one focus and maybe extract one team or one hostage, or go in and save one group of people, or maybe it's taking out one evil person, right? Like they have, their goal is to do one thing specific. And so in the battles that we face, we have these different types of attack. And why that's important to fighting with integrity is sometimes we don't fight with integrity. We take a fight and we take a battle and we say, forget this. I'm scorched earthing this. We're just done. And so we drop the bombs and we don't think tactically. Other times we do an all-out assault. We line up like we're in the olden days, right? Where kings would grab everybody in their kingdom with pitchforks and any sharp object, essentially, any sharp tool, and say, we're going to go kill all of them. And so they would go, they would line up, and then they would run at each other, and whoever was the last team standing, that's who won, and they won all the land, and they won all the people. And it was wild to think about. But we do that sometimes in our lives where we go through a battle and we say, all right, I want to get in shape. I'm going to go all in on getting shape. And in the process, you basically go all in, an all out assault. And within, I don't know, I'd say maybe 2 weeks, you've torn a ligament, you've pulled a hamstring, you find yourself broken and beaten, and there's barely anybody standing. And it's literally like the last body part standing, because you went on an all-out assault on something that you needed a little bit more of a tactical thought process through. And how you fight matters, because when you go to war and when you go to battle, if you're throwing yourself into certain battles, all you're going to do is damage yourself. It's like World War I when they did trench warfare. They'd blow a whistle and people would literally stand up out of the trenches and run across no man's land, is what it was called. And they would just get mowed down by machine guns. And then the next group from the other side, they'd blow a whistle and they'd run and they'd get shot. And then they'd do it again and again and again. And it really didn't get anywhere. And it just ended with a lot of damage. So that's why one of the processes, understanding the methods of attack. And just like the military generals make decisions on how to execute an attack, we have to make decisions on how we want to fight for our dreams, or fight for the future that we want, or fight for, how will we fight for our loved ones and the people that are dearest to us? Because sometimes the easiest answer may be, yeah, let's blow it all up and start over. But that's not the best way to do it. And we know it because we've seen so many people blow up their lives. And it's just left people broken and hurting. And I don't want us to do that. I want us to have an integrity of recognizing that, yes, we do need to recognize battles. And yes, there are dangers and sometimes casualties, and you lose friends and you lose jobs and you lose people. Sometimes you gain people too. And sometimes you don't have to lose people if you do it the right way. I've gone through different moments in my life, and I've recognized where friends have been, I've lost friends not because they were bad friends to me, and not because they weren't, good friends. It was me. I was selfish. I cut them off at the wrong time. I cut them off when they needed me, but it was easier for me to cut them off because I didn't want to deal with their BS. And because of that, I've lost friends. And I didn't fight well. Sometimes I even fought cheap, where I looked for shortcuts and I said, you know what? If I say this, I know that'll piss them off. So I did. And it's like I saw moments where I've had friendships where I've seen like I can get rid of them faster if I act like this. And it's the most childish thing about when I look back on some of those moments, but I've learned. And that's why I think it's important to fight with integrity. And there's a part of it where we don't always realize that when we're fighting for something, it's impacting the people around us and the closest people to us. See, how you fight your daily or weekly or yearly battles directly impacts those people. Because some battles may demand an all-out assault, right? There may be things in your life where you're like, no, we have to attack this head on. I need to go get therapy for X. I need to do this, and this. I need to set up boundaries here. We need to full on head on assault this because it is wrecking my life. And this is a battle that I have to go all out against. But others might require a little bit of patience and finesse and figuring out, you know what, maybe there doesn't need to be as many casualties. Maybe there doesn't need to be as big of a deal, right? Sometimes the battle is just, hey, I don't need to bring this up to this friend as if it's an issue. Maybe I just need to have a conversation with a friend. Hey, so-and-so said this. I just want to get your side of it before I assume or make an assumption about this. Oh, that's what you meant. That makes so much sense, right? It's like a small conversation you can have that can save a friendship. And it's literally, that's the battle, is being able to recognize that some things just need a little patience and a little finesse and maybe just a good conversation. I think I know for a fact that I've gone through many battles with this scorched earth mentality. And some of them I've won. I've definitely won some of my battles because I went into it with I don't care who is in my way. I'm just like a wrecking ball going to come through and I'm going to make it. And I did, but at the same cost or at the same time, it cost me a lot, where sometimes I left that whole area and everybody in my radius just burnt. And even myself burnt. I've seen marriages just absolutely collapse and children hurt because parents went scorched earth on each other because they didn't have the integrity to have a civil conversation or to back away and recognize that this battle is going to impact a lot more than just us. And I know that it's us that are unhappy, but we need to handle it a different way. We need to take a moment to cool down. Instead, they just heated up until everything burnt down. And it hurt people. I have friends who are children of divorce, and you can tell it impacts them. Even to this day. Even though it happened years and years and years ago, it impacts them. So recognizing how you're battling, and maybe you're in a marriage right now and it is not going well and divorce has been brought up. Take a step back and recognize, okay, what's the integrity that I need to show here? Do I need to show a little finesse here? Or maybe you need to all out assault it and say, okay, we're doing the therapy. I'm quitting this. I'm stopping looking at things I shouldn't look at. I'm not going to be focused on this. I'll get a new job if I have to. Like, there are things that you can do. One of my best friends in the world moved states because there was something that could turn into an issue. Literally moved states and said, no, my wife and my family and my relationship with God is this important. I'm going on an all-out assault we're changing everything up because I'm fighting for the future that I know I want. And I'm fighting for the integrity of my spouse and my children. And I love that. That's the type of fighting that we need to do more of. I've also been the pacifist, though. I don't want to fight. It doesn't have anything to do with me. Why should I fight? Yeah, those are not my favorite moments in life. I've also met a lot of people like that. They just don't fight. They don't fight for others. They don't fight for themselves. And I've met talented people who have astronomical gifts from God that they could do incredible things trapped in a life that they never wanted because they were never willing or never learned the skills that it took to fight for their future, to fight for what they were good at, and to fight with integrity and conviction and say, no, I'm good at this. I want to do this for my life or for my job or for my occupation, or I want to be around it or an influence in it. And they said, no, I guess that's it. I there's nothing I can do. I'm not going to fight for it. I'm just going to let it pass by. It's painful sometimes because I bring up some of these friends and I think about them and I hope that they're doing well. I truly do. But I know in my life, there's been moments where I've gone to battle without integrity, without the thought process of, I want to do this the right way. I want to build the skills correctly. I want to understand how this process works. I want to understand which branch of the mental military in my mind do I need to attack this a certain way. Maybe I need to just bomb it. Like there are things in life where, like, I'll never forget bed bugs. Bed bugs are the worst thing in the world, and I'll never forget. We're done. Mattress is gone. That's a battle where you just bomb it. Throw the mattress out, change the carpet. We're done. And there are things like that where there's an infestation of things, right? There's an infestation of addiction. There's an infestation of people who are, I don't want to say that. Well, let me rephrase. There are people who are taking advantage of you. I was going to say something a little bit more crass, but I chose not to. When people take advantage of you and others latch onto that and realize they can also take advantage of you, it all of a sudden, there can be an infestation of people who want. And so people are takers. And so if they find out that they can take from you, it's just going to be take, and more people will latch on, and they just take. And you've got to learn how to stand up for yourself and fight. And if you don't, people will just keep taking advantage of you and stepping all over you, and you turn into a doormat. And that's not healthy either. And that's just going to leave you beaten and bruised and completely alone in a lot of ways, because even though there might be people who are taking from you, they're never giving or pouring into you. So you just empty yourself, and eventually you're this empty vessel that feels empty inside, broken and confused and frustrated. And I can promise you from personal experience, that is one of the worst and saddest things about not knowing how to fight with integrity and not knowing how to fight correctly and not knowing how to stand up for yourself when you need to stand up for yourself. See, my temptation when I go to battles is often grind mode. I love grind mode. It's one of my favorites. I literally can put my headphones in, lock in, and just get it done. Whatever I need to get done. And it becomes this addiction to me, right? Where it's almost like everything that I accomplish, it's that dopamine kick, that spike where I'm like, yes. So I go from one thing to the next. And I'm like, I just need that next dopamine hit. So I just need to lock in again, stay locked in, grind, overwork or overdo, whatever it is. I obsess over one thing. And eventually, I find myself distant from people, distant from friends. I have a couple of friends who, they brought this up. I had one of my friends who's one of my close friends. He said, I called you. You didn't pick up. And I just had to own it because I was in grind mode. I was in this mode of where I just wasn't taking outside noise at all. And I remember he called and he was going through something and he called me because I always said, you know, if you ever need me, give me a call. We say that to people, but do we really mean it? But I was in the mentality of like, block everything out and just get stuff done. And because of that, my friend hurt. And so the people around you, you have to recognize that if you go to battle that way, yeah, it might be good for a season. You know, a controlled season of, hey guys, during this time, I need to work really, really hard and focused on this. After, you're all mine. Like I've got, I'm all yours. You can call me anything, but right now I'm just focused on this. It's not for a long time. It's just for now. But yeah, you hurt people. You have the parents that overwork and so their kids never see them. You have people who just are distant. I know marriages where they're coworkers or roommates at this point because they really only see each other in passing because they're both working jobs that require a lot of hours and they never really get time to themselves. And that's not how you go to battle, especially for things as important as marriage. Now, if it's for a time, I get it. But if that's just how you're living week in, week out, month in, month out, even year in, year out, I know these people have been doing it for years. That's not a marriage. That's a roommate situation. You're just going to work and coming home. See, I think it's important that we recognize these things and then we are able to see, why are we fighting? What's the purpose of the battle? When you're fighting with integrity, you know the purpose. You know exactly why. You know exactly what the end goal is. And if the end goal is no casualties, you want to send in the SEALs. You want the SEALs to go in and almost sneak attack, just neutralize the enemies, grab the people and get them out, right? Like you don't want, if your goal is no casualties, then you want a very well-crafted, small attack, a very focused attack, right? If you've got a friend group and one specific friend is dealing with an addiction, you do the, the common, hey, like, I don't want to bring this up in front of everybody, but are you okay? And there needs to be a little bit of tactics when you have that conversation. You don't want to be in the middle of a group and be like, hey, John, I hear you're really drinking a lot. Like, that's probably going to explode. That's like dropping a bomb. Not exactly the best. You want some tactic. You want to understand the why. What's the purpose? What's the end goal? I think it's funny because I went to school for broadcasting, like I mentioned. I love talking about sports. I always will. There's like this affinity and there's this like purpose in my life where I just love talking about sports. And my dear mother, bless her soul, she knows that I like talking about sports and she loves football. So she'll text me about football on Sundays and sometimes on Saturdays about college football. But she's funny. Like, I don't think nobody knows her, but like her friends and me. But I think she's hilarious. Like, she makes me laugh out loud from like a text because she'll text me on a Sunday and be like, who are you going for today? And she'll list a couple of the games that are going on. And I went to school for sports broadcasting, so I can talk about any team. I can tell you their strengths, their weaknesses. I like coaches. I like players. I love certain matchups. I grew up a Jacksonville Jaguar fan for no reason whatsoever, but I love talking about sports. And so she'll be like, well, who are you rooting for? And I'll be like, well, I like this team and I like that team. And she'll be like, I'm rooting for this team. There's no rhyme or reason on why my mom cheers or roots for specific teams week to week. Like, there will be a week where she'll be like, oh yeah, I like that team too. I'm like, okay, cool. Like, that's great. And then the next week I'll be like, yeah, I really want them to win. She's like, no, I want them to lose. I want this team to win. And it just makes no sense. So I always have to ask why. And she doesn't usually. Sometimes she has a good answer, but for the most part, she never really has a great answer. It's usually like, oh, this guy's post interview and, post game interview, he seemed arrogant or rude, or maybe, this quarterback's cuter, or I really like this team growing up, or I like this coach, or, little tidbits here and there. But it's like she'll flip flop all the time. So one week she'll be a fan of the Broncos. Next week she won't be a fan of the Broncos. One week she's like, I hope the Jets do okay. And then the next week, they're the Jets. Let them lose. It's like there's no rhyme or reason. But I always have to ask her the question, why? She doesn't usually have a good answer, but I don't think we do either. How many times have you found yourself in an argument and you can't remember how it started? How many times have you gone through a battle with somebody, maybe a loved one, maybe a friend, and you can't remember what the purpose of this argument was? I remember I had a friend who we argued about something. I cannot tell you what it was about, but I remember we didn't talk for like a month. And at the end of it, I don't think either of us could tell what our argument was about or why we disliked each other. And we had to get to this point where we were like, there's no point in keeping this up. Like, let's hang out. Like, how many times have I know it's happened to you? If it's happened to me, chances are I'm not the only one, right? Where you've gotten in an argument, maybe with your spouse or your loved one or your friends, or maybe your boss at work, and you're like, I disagree about this, and it turns into this thing, and then you jump from, well, I disagreed about this, and then it's I disagree about this, and then it's something over here, and then it's something over here, and then next thing you know, you're like, what were you talking about again? Maybe we need to just back up a little bit and get back on the page. I think the why is probably one of the most important things when going to battle, understanding the why in the battle and what the end goal is. Why are you battling? I think it's one of the most important ways of fighting with integrity. Because if you know the end goal and you know why you're going to battle, you can confidently, with conviction and focus, say, I need to go to battle because of X, Y, and Z. This is an issue in my life. This can hurt people around me. I need to go to battle to be better so that I'm better for the people around me. I need to do it with a conviction. I need to get in shape. I need to wake up earlier. I need to spend more time in scripture. I need to spend more time in community. I need to serve in church. I need to get baptized. All of those things impact the people around you, and they're good battles, but you recognize the why. Why are you going to battle? Why are you working so hard? I need to afford for my family. Great. Now you know a why. You can do it with conviction. So on the bad days of work, when you're like, why am I even doing this? You need to remember the why. You're doing it to take care of your spouse, to take care of your kids, to take care of your future, to build the future that you want. So next time you have a crappy day at work, I want you to think about why do you work in the first place? Is it just because you want to have fun, you want to do social things, and you like the people that you work with? Chances are that may be somewhat true. You might like some of the people you work with. You might have some friends at your work. But the real reason is you want to take care of your family. You want to build the future. You want to build your career. So when you have a bad day, remember the actual why of the battle that you're going and solidify it in your mind so that anytime you think, why am I still here? Because I'm working. I'm doing something that's benefiting my future. If you don't recognize the why and you can't recognize the end goal, it's probably a sign that you're in the wrong battle and you need to get out of there. I love scripture. And when I was thinking about battles, I came across a really cool story. It's in Joshua chapter 10. And Joshua is the leader of the Israelites, and they're basically going throughout the land. And he has some treaties, like some of the other kings, the surrounding kings are there with him, but he's also conquering other areas that they don't have treaties with. So he conquers a town called Ai, which I think is funny. And he totally destroys it. And the 5 kings of the Amorites all join forces, and they're like, okay, we need to position our troops because they just demolished this. And I know we have a treaty with them, but we're going to join forces so that we can actually go to battle correctly. And so they join forces and they gather all of their armies together at this place called Gibeon. And the Gibeonites are allies of Joshua as well. And so they say, Joshua, please don't abandon us. Come help us. Because literally all 5 of these kings have joined together, and they're going to demolish us like you demolished Ai. And so it says that Joshua marched his entire army, including all of his best fighting men. And this is Joshua 10:7. It says, 10:8. The Lord said to Joshua, do not be afraid of them. I have given them into your hand. Not one of them will be able to withstand you. After an all-night march from Gilgal, Joshua took them by surprise. Verse 10, the Lord threw them into confusion before Israel. So Joshua and the Israelites defeated them completely at Gibeon. Israel pursued them along the road going up to Beth-horon and cut them down all the way to Ezekah and Makkedah. As they fled before Israel on the road down from Beth-horon and Ezekah, the Lord hurled large hailstones down on them, and more of them died from the hail than were killed by the swords of the Israelites. On the day the Lord gave the Amorites over to Israel, Joshua said to the Lord, in the presence of Israel, sun, stand still over Gibeon, and you, moon, over the valley of Ajalon. So the sun stood still and the moon stopped, till the nation avenged itself on its enemies. As it is written in the book of Jashar, the sun stopped in the middle of the sky and delayed going down about a full day. There has never been a day like it before or since, a day when the Lord listened to a human being. Surely the Lord was fighting for Israel. While everybody else is fighting however they see fit, I want us to be a people that fight with integrity and fight with God. And recognize that when we do things the right way, it builds character and it builds skills and it builds the aspects and the hope and the dreams and the joy and all of the things around us. It builds the people and our future in the correct way. So that maybe when you get your dream job or your dream girl or your dream house, you have the strength and the skills and the talents and the abilities that are ingrained into who you are, to where you can confidently say, I know the why I went to battle. I can carry this. I'm ready for this. I have the ability to do this, and I can confidently say, I'm good. I'm gonna give it my all. Doesn't make it easy. Never said it was easy, but you are stronger and you are more ready for it because you've built those skills and those talents. Fighting with integrity often looks like making the hard decisions, choosing forgiveness over bitterness and rage, choosing to stay silent when all you can think of is insults. Fighting with integrity often recognizes that you're not always right. Fighting with integrity also looks like being able to be the first to say, I'm sorry. Fighting with integrity may look like saying, you know what? I can stay a little bit later. I can't always do it, but I can do it today. Fighting with integrity is calling that friend back and saying, hey, I missed your call. I was working on something really important, but I'm here for you now. What's going on? Fighting with integrity sometimes just means I've failed in these aspects. I've hurt you in these. I've broken your trust, and being honest. So this week, when you're facing those battles, aside from just preparing for them, I want you to think about the why. I want you to think about what's the best way of attacking this? Do I need to scorched earth it? No, probably not. You need a tactical team that goes in and helps. That's why it's so important to have close friends, because they're your tactical team that will help you navigate the world and navigate the missions and navigate the struggles and the battles, and they're going to help you. Sometimes they're the team that extracts you when you're in trouble. Sometimes it's an all-out assault. Hey, I screwed up real big and I need a lot of help. Thank you for listening to this conversation. These conversations aren't easy for me because these conversations are all happening in my life right now. They've all been happening for years. And when I was prepping for this series, I had to face some truths to the fact that I wasn't fighting battles the way that I thought I was fighting battles. And so I hope that with some vulnerability, you'll understand that this is important for all of us. It's important for the best friends and for the family members and the spouses and the loved ones in your future. So whether you're in middle school, high school, or college and you're not married yet, or maybe you're postgraduate, or maybe you are in your dream job, or you are in a great job, or you're in a great position, all of this matters. And how you fight today will impact your tomorrow. It'll impact your loved ones in the future. If you eventually have a little girl or a little boy, you're going to eventually have the conversations with them of what daddy or mommy was like when they were 18, 20, 21, 30. Do you really want to tell them, I did some stupid stuff? I mean, we're all going to say that. But like, do you really want to tell them certain things that you did? Or do you want to fight with integrity? And you want to have that be your pillar of what you build your foundations on? It's the fact that you did the best you could with where you were. And you did it because you knew the why. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast. I really hope you enjoy it. Please like and subscribe. That really helps the podcast. Share this with a friend or two. This is week 2, so definitely share week 2. Have them go back to listen to week 1 on the battles we face. 2026 is like stacked already. My first 2 months are just crazy busy. Lots going on, lots of conversations that are going to happen. After we wrap this up, we're actually going to talk about reflections and being able to almost look back, because by then it'll be February, and we'll be able to look back on like resolutions and then what that looks like, even if we're starting late or even if we started early and we are starting to lose some momentum. But we're going to talk about a lot of different things. So thank you so much for listening. Again, YouTube, Spotify, and iTunes. Please go drop a like, follow, rate it 5 stars wherever you can. It really, really helps the podcast grow. I want to continue to build this brand and build this podcast and build the community up so that there's a reach this year. We want to reach as many people as we can with the message of hope, message of joy, message of chasing after your dreams and reaching your greatest future. I love each and every one of you. This is so much fun for me to have this conversation. So I hope that all of you have a wonderful rest of your week. Remember to give grace, show love, and as always, stay stellar. Peace.